Booktube, Science Fiction Reads here with an updated library tour, finally. We recently bought a house and I was able to expand the library. From a corner of one room to having a room devoted to it entirely. So, quite exciting to finally get a lot of books out of storage and on the shelves. And there's a few things I've done to maximize space. I took out all my Neil Asher's, which I have almost everything he's written, and I devoted a shelf just to Neil Asher, just to make more space on the main paperback shelves. There's a couple other things I've done, but I think we'll go around the room first before the actual paperback collection. Over here I've framed, quite a while ago actually, a couple analogs that have cover art of stories I quite enjoy, one by Niven and one by James Schmitz, and then a little SF Lego set my girlfriend got me quite a while ago. When I run out of space, I have these shelves over here for more paperbacks, but I'll probably come up with something. I'll probably get some other bookshelf in here somewhere, but it's a temporary solution. And then here I have books waiting to be in a book haul. My most recent find was actually this first edition, first printing of The Name of the Wind. I read that years ago and loved it, but I never read the second, because I know he never wrote and probably never will write the third. Got this, I guess, activity table for Lego. The girlfriend and I are very much into Lego, so some old build here I took out of a box and started reassembling, but it'll probably sit there for months. The book I'm currently reading, though I haven't started it, I just finished the second Well of Souls book, and this is the third. It turns out the second and third are really just one book split into two. Now, I mentioned I devoted a shelf to Neil Asher. I'm not sure how I feel about just, he's not my favorite author, so having a shelf for one author feels a little weird, but that's a lot of space that I free up for just the majority collection over here. So I've ranted about how much I love Neil Asher's Polity series before. Up top, we've got the Blu-ray, The Emperor of Dreams, which is a documentary on Clark Ashton Smith, which I watched years ago before I ever read anything by him. But now that I've read a bunch, I'm very much looking forward to watching that again. Then down below, I have a couple things here. I've got some of the Del Rey best ofs, all the ones I have in hardcover. I might take out the paperbacks and put them here. I've got all but one. I think I still need Eric Frank Russell. Other than that, I've got them all. The Best of Damon Knight and the Best of James H. Smith are not part of the series, but I added them on there anyway because they're best ofs. And this was another way to free up space on the hardcover shelf. Get all these off. I've been reading these with Richard at Vintage SF and Ira at SF Words of Wonder. And then on the other side, I've got the complete hardcover collection of the annual World's Best SF by Da. There was no 1979 hardcover for some reason. I think there was a paperback, so not a totally complete collection, but it is a complete hardcover collection. And it was really nice to be able to get those out of a box and onto a shelf. And in the center, probably the most famous SF book ever written. No, that's not true. This is a curio. I found this online years ago. I can't remember where, some book selling website. I liked the cover art, the minimalist cover art of like a cockpit or a bridge, and what looks like probably a planet and a moon in front of a sun. and the title, The Legacy of Man, is just epic. So I bought this knowing nothing about it, and I haven't re-looked into it, but at the time, I tried to find information on this book and this author, and I could find nothing online anywhere. I couldn't even find another example of this book being sold, despite the info on the back. It is signed too. Unfortunately, I've skimmed through it. It appears to just be a really bad military SF, just a lot of nautical jargon and, you know, man the torpedoes and stuff like that. I'll probably never read it, but until I get the rest of the best ofs and hardcovers and take up the space, I thought I'd just put it there because I love that cover art. But it is a curiosity for sure. Over here, we have, I was able to get all these anthologies out of storage and devote a shelf to them. And then this Lego spacecraft. I think I had this at the tail end of a video once. This was something I was working on years ago and never completed. I called it the Darwin's Origin. It was supposed to be like a exoplanet survey ship looking into the nature of evolution and nature on other planets, life on other planets. I never actually finished it, but it's got, you know, the shuttle bay that lights up, and you know, part of the other side fell off during the move. Haven't managed to get that back on. But the anthologies, it's nice to finally have these out of the box. Got some interesting ones from Brian Aldiss. Space Odysseys, I haven't really heard anyone mention. I've seen these mentioned and talked about as well as space opera, but I haven't read any of these. I've got the 2-volume set of A Treasury of Great Science Fiction, which is very cool. I've had these several times. I keep updating them. Every time I get one in better condition, it just replaces the one I previously had. So David G. Hartwell, a great anthologist. Some excellent hard SF here. Introduced me to some great stories and a couple new to me authors. Now that I have the space, I've taken a couple things off of eBay and put them on my shelves. And one of those was this 2-volume set from Arbor House, edited by Robert Silverberg. And they came in handy because when Ira was talking about a Henry Kuttner, C.L. Moore story that they wrote under the name Lewis Paget called Private Eye, I was able to find it in the short story collection right here. So it's already come in handy. Glad I didn't sell it. And a bunch of mostly randoms, some incomplete sets here. Another popular series. And yeah, a bunch of containers for sorting Lego and whatnot. Then we get over to the hardcovers. I never had hardcovers on the very top. That used to be just other stuff. So that's an extra shelf. So I've been able to take a lot out, especially since I removed the best ofs. I've been able to fit a lot more from storage. So I've got some Asimovs, and nonfiction here. Asimov just contemplating extraterrestrial civilizations, which I have not read, but I've looked through, and it seems pretty interesting. It's really cool, Fantastic Voyage. I think mine's a book club edition, but very old and rough, but you wrap it in a Brodart jacket, and it's pretty nice. I think I might just turn off this strip light I've got. All right, so also on the hardcover shelves are paperbacks that just don't fit on the regular, smaller paperback shelf. I've got this awesome Hafner Press collection from Lee Brackett. They did 3 or 4 of these, but they're pretty expensive. This is usually the cheapest one, and I found it fairly cheap. Some C.J. Cherry. I have a lot of C.J. Cherry book club books, but I've only got a few actually out on the shelf. These are some I took out of storage. Star Rigger's Way, which I think is the first written in kind of a combined series he wrote. Vanguard to Venus is a real random, but just a very cool looking vintage hardcover. Michael Coney, the second in his Song of Earth trilogy, which I'm very much looking forward to getting to. After reading kind of the prequel story to that series. Julie Zerneda, Canadian author. I think I read both Survival and Migration, but I never finished the series. A lot of these now are stuff I was able to take out of storage. Stephen R. Donaldson's Thomas Covenant Chronicles. I absolutely loved the first trilogy, despite the terrible, controversial main character. I found each of these book club editions for, I think, $1. They are some of my favorite looking books. They all depict actual scenes or locations, too. I really, really enjoyed those. Second trilogy, not so much. Stargate by Pauline Gedge, which I've mentioned over and over the past few years. Nothing to do with the franchise. Came out before that. It's a really epic science fantasy, which I found quite deep and emotional and just really, really well written. And it is the author's favorite book that she wrote and the only science fiction she wrote. I think this is a 10th anniversary Neuromancer. Yeah. Dark Orbit by Carolyn Ives Gilman. I've never heard anyone talk about it or her. It's one of the first science fiction I read way back when. And it was quite good. I don't think she's written much. I think she's written a few short stories that take place in the same world as this. But, yeah, it involved a character traveling to another solar system, I think digitally, being broken down into data and being, transmitted and then reassembled on arrival. And meeting a group of humans who were living blind in a cave system or something. It was quite good. I wish she'd write more. Take Back Plenty by Colin Greenwood, a book I loved and hated. And another favorite of mine, Where Time Winds Blow by Robert Holdstock. I really loved that. So much so I tracked down this neat little hardcover. The Hero Destine books. I'm really looking forward to checking these out. Richard at Vintage SF really enjoyed those. There's a lot of Nesfa Press books. Not as much as I'd like. I really enjoy this publisher. Probably my favorite Murray Leinster story I've read so far came from here. Exploration Team, I believe it was called. The Shusin Liu trilogy. Enjoyed the first two, but never got around to the third. A lot of book club editions. These Julian Mays are really, really nice wraparound covers. China Mevel, Perdido Street Station, my all-time favorite novel. Just the best, most vivid world building I've ever read. I absolutely love that book. And some Larry Niven. I think I have 3 copies of Ringworld altogether on the shelves. This is a very rough book club edition, but it's just got such funny, comical cover art. Some more Nesfa Press. I think they did 3 volumes of Chad Oliver. 3 novels here, which I've read, enjoyed all 3, and then 2 volumes of his short stories, of which I've got 1. Spaceling by Doris Pachercha. Took this out of storage. Absolutely awesome cover art. I'm a little burnt out on her, having read 1.5 of her books recently. I couldn't finish the second. Yes, some Alistair Reynolds. Another author who you know, my favorite contemporary author. So I've got basically everything, including his Subterranean Press books, which are all like limited to 1,000 or 1,500 copies, but they're not actually that hard to find. They're pretty much always on eBay. They're never too crazy priced. Thousandth Night is a novella that takes place in the world of House of Suns. I think there's also a House of Suns story in his somewhat recent release from Subterranean Press, Belladonna Nights. And The Six Directions of Space, which is a really good one. So R.A. Salvatore from my early days of reading. Carl Schroeder, Canadian author. Ventus and Permanence are excellent hard SF space operas. Daryl Schweitzer. Last year I read his We Are Legends, and then just absolutely had to have more by him, though I haven't read anything else yet. But that was kind of like a male version of Jarell of Jory by C.L. Moore. Charles Sheffield, Summertide, the first in his Heritage series. I really loved those books. They're like kind of a light, hard SF space opera with a little bit of humor in the way the characters interact with one another. Lots of big, dumb objects that humans are traveling around the galaxy trying to understand. Some Silverberg, a lot of book club editions of Simac. The Complete Cordwainer Smith from Nesfa Press. You know, everything from his Instrumentality of Mankind. Door into Ocean, another one of my favorites. Some Clark Ashton Smith, which has recently been reprinted by Hippocampus Press, who I think are the same people who put out that Blu-ray documentary. Brian Stableford's The Empire of Fear. I got that last year, and that is supposed to be a really good vampire novel. Bruce Sterling's Schismatrix Plus. I wanted to get around to that forever. Haven't quite got there yet. And down on the bottom, we got Michael Swanwick's Vacuum Flowers. That's a really good cyberpunk that not a lot of people talk about when they're talking about cyberpunk. John Varley's Titan, the first in the Gaia trilogy, and my favorite of the trilogy. Probably my favorite SF novel, A Fire Upon the Deep, Werner Vinge, which I tried and DNF'd 2 or 3 times before I clicked with it, and it became just, I thought it was just a masterpiece. I had to track down this first edition. And the other 2 in the series, which I also have in paperback. I can't decide if I want to keep those, or keep these, or just the paperbacks. I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. And rounding it out, well, we got Colin Wilson's The Space Vampires, which I thought was such a weird novel. I did a video talking about it that was 30 or 40 minutes long. And some Robert Charles Wilson, who I recently discovered about 2 years ago and just devoured his stuff. I really, really enjoyed him. And another one I read recently was Chelsea Quinn Yarbo's False Dawn, which was a really depressing post-apocalypse novel that just has really stuck with me. I constantly feel like rereading that. So that is the hardcovers. I've got another shelf up here that currently has childhood nostalgia on it, but that is where more hardcovers will end up going when I have no room. Anybody remember the G.I. Joe ripoff, The Core from the 90s? And my old iRacing, sim racing steering wheel. A hobby I dearly miss, but just don't have the time anymore for that. And then this cabinet, mostly childhood books. The Complete Redwall from Brian Jakes. A couple of years ago I tracked down the few I didn't have, but for the most part these are all my childhood copies. This might be the first novel I ever read, and the actual physical copy as well. So very nostalgic. And I picked up a nice mint copy that I found at the thrift store. And other randoms, lots of peanuts. And then the Rupert Bear annual collection. In Canada in the 90s, there was a Rupert Bear cartoon. But it wasn't until I was an adult that I realized Rupert Bear is like a 100-year-old comic strip in the UK, in the Daily Express. And then I became obsessed with the annuals and started collecting them. There's been one every year since the mid-30s. I do have one of the very first, yeah, from 36 or so. That was not easy to find. And the more you collect, especially on this side of the planet, the harder it is to find ones you don't have. And just some randoms. Gary Jennings' Aztec, another of my favorite novels. That's a historical fiction. Border Worlds was a really cool graphic novel by Don Simpson. It was actually a comic. There's the original issues, but a few years ago he had this bind up of all of them released. And I really liked this story. It was about a woman who inherits a spaceship and uses it to, I think, haul cargo as a business. And of course, I'm not going to find a picture of the ship, but I was really inspired by the ship. I made it out of Lego, and I posted it on Flickr, and then the author found it years later and asked if he could post the pictures on his website or Facebook or something. So I said, sure. And now that I have the space, I dug that old model out and stuck it over here. And even with all the room, I think at one point I had 6 or 7 of these bins full of books. Now I'm down to 3 or 4. These are mostly hardcovers. And then I've got 2 still full of paperbacks. Stuff I just don't have room for or just don't want on the shelves. And just a bin of vintage pulps. Lots of amazings and fantastics. I think the older ones from the 50s and 60s are on the other side. Although some of these are, oh yeah, these are all 50s, 60s. There's Fantastics, magazine of science fiction fantasy. A bin of Poul Anderson, a literal bin of Poul Anderson. I've already got probably 10 of his paperbacks on the shelves. Not sure what to do there. I'm not putting all that Poul Anderson on the shelves, taking up all that space. More childhood, 80s, 90s nostalgia, and some more framed magazines, just some cover art that I liked. Mostly stuff that puts me in the mind of Hard SF when I look at it. And this poster, I have talked about William Tedford's Time Quest trilogy a few times. He's a little-known author, and it's a little-known book series. The publisher must have had a lot of faith in it to, I don't know, I've never seen posters like this. It's a promotional poster. I found it on eBay. It wasn't all that expensive, so I had to have it. We'll get to those books in the paperback shelf tour, but yeah, I couldn't wait to actually frame that and have somewhere to put it. And if you know what Garth Marenghi is, there's some bonus points for you. Excellent comedy. And I think that leads us to the paperbacks.